everyone. I want to thank you all for joining us tonight. My name is Wyatt Karchner, and I'm with Moles and Corbin. I see a lot of familiar faces in the audience tonight. I think this is our 5th meeting we've had with a lot of you guys. This will be our 3rd public meeting. We've had several stakeholder meetings. And I want to thank you guys for your continued support, effort, and just time invested in this project. It really means a lot, and as you guys can see, you guys have really developed the project into what it is today. And so I know it takes time from your busy schedules to be here, but we really do appreciate it. Just to kind of a recap, I know you guys have seen a lot of this stuff before, so I'll go through it pretty quickly. Our project team is made up of the NMDOT, who is the owner of Valley Drive, and then we're also partnering with the city of Las Cruces, since it is in the city limits. Moles and Corbin was the prime consultant, and then we had several sub-consultants: HDR, AMEC Foster Wheeler, Cobb Finley, Ecosphere, Aerotech Mapping, and then of course Ray Solar, who's doing all of our video stuff for us. Just a recap of what the project is, if you guys already know. We're starting the project on Avenida de Mesilla at Hickory near the McDonald's, proceeding to the east to Valley Drive, and then north along Valley Drive to US 70 or Picacho. And then this project includes lots of safety improvements, access control, driveways, ADA improvements from sidewalks, bicycle lanes, bus stops. We have lots of signal improvements, drainage improvements, and of course we're redoing all of the pavement. One of the things that we're incorporating now is some landscaping, and then the city of Las Cruces is also upgrading the utilities as part of the project. One of the aspects of this project that's important to note is that the NMDOT is the current owner of the roadway, but upon completion of the project, the road will be transferred to the city of Las Cruces. And so the city of Las Cruces will take ownership of all the right-of-way, and they will take all of the maintenance over for the entire life of the street. And so with that, we've incorporated all of the city, a lot of the city design standards. The cities have been involved from day one on the decision-making process and throughout the entire project. One of the things we've talked about in the past is the traffic study. So we don't want to design the street for the traffic today. We want to make sure that it'll work for in the future. And so we projected traffic into 2040. And we also looked at 17 intersections. We did a driveway analysis based on the State Access Management Manual, and then also input from you all. We also did a safety analysis, which included crash history, the locations of the crashes, and then a signal warrant at 7 intersections were also done. And through all of that analysis, various improvements were made. We have dual left turn lanes at lots of the intersections. We don't have any additional signalized intersections currently that will be added. So the existing signalized intersections will be upgraded, but nothing new will be added. And then I'll turn it over to John, and he can talk about the environmental process.
Good evening, everybody. Again, I'm John Toshek with Ecosphere, and our role is to do the environmental compliance. As Wyatt said, there is federal money in the project, and as a consequence, we need to comply with the National Environmental Policy Act and Clean Water Act and all the other federal environmental laws. That's also part of the state process. And National Environmental Policy Act, or NEPA, basically is a law that is intended to make sure that environmental factors are considered in the decision-making process. And, you know, we look at a whole range of topics, I guess, showing up here, and really just focus on those that are relevant to the particular project. For this project, because the corridor is highly developed and has been for some time, there really are, you know, natural resources. We did a separate cultural resource study, and there are some historic buildings, but there are no impacts. There are no water quality impacts, wetlands, endangered species, those sorts of things. But what's really proved to be important here is the impact on the community, the economic impacts, the access to businesses, And those things that we've been talking about for the past couple of years through these 4 or 5 meetings that we've had, the 3 public meetings, and then some of the meetings we've had with stakeholders and the business community. So we have prepared what the New Mexico State Transportation Department calls a categorical exclusion. It's not a full EIS or environmental assessment, but it's rather more an abbreviated study that summarizes the resource studies we developed. That was the level of effort that the NMDOT determined was appropriate for the project. We did a lot of resource studies in the Phase A-B part of the project where we were looking at different alternatives and different alignments and different cross-sections and that sort of things. And part of the process is public input, and that's why we've had the meetings in the past, and that's why we're here tonight. Many of you probably know the design has changed in response to the input that we received. We want to make sure that the community that is on the corridor, as well as the people that drive through the corridor, we want to make sure that their needs are addressed. And to that end, we're having this meeting here tonight to update you on the design, and we should be proceeding into the final phases of design and construction after this meeting. And I did want to say that we sent out notices with a comment form, and there are also comment forms in the back. Please feel free to state your question or comments tonight, but then also if you think of something later or you want to send it in writing, please do that as well. You can either give it to me or send it to me. My address is on the comment form. Thank you.
So as we first started this project, a lot of you guys, we saw you when we were just developing the alternatives. And so you remember we had lots of things on the wall. We've had stickers for everybody to put their sticker on the favorite alternative. And then through that process, we screened down those alternatives to this recommended typical section. So you can see here we're going to start in the middle and work my way out. We have a raised median. Sometimes it's raised, sometimes it's not raised, depending on the location, but majority of the project it is raised. And then we have 2 12-foot driving lanes, a buffered bike lane. So there's a 3-foot buffer and then a 5-foot bike lane. We have curb and gutter, parkway, and then sidewalk behind the parkway. And then as we proceed north, as we get closer to Picacho, the right-of-way narrows up, and so we end up reducing the parkway or eliminating the parkway. And then if we run out of right-of-way again, we reduce or eliminate the buffer. And then as we actually go through the Picacho intersection and proceed north on Valley Drive, the bike lane is a shared lane, and so we introduce that shared bike lane at the Picacho intersection. At the last stakeholder meeting that we had, it was probably in early this year, February, I believe. One of the things that came up was Amador Proximo and a lot of the changes that resulted in that. While we were doing the Phase A-B study, the city of Las Cruces also conducted what they called the Amador Proximo Community Blueprint. And they were looking at an area within the project limits of Valley. So it's Valley Drive is the western limit, and it goes from Amador to Hadley. And so kind of a square in there. And they had a pretty quick process of how to redevelop that area. You can see this map is kind of what they were looking to redevelop and revitalize. And so they had 5 days of public meetings, lots of input from individuals and community through that process. And then it was adopted by the city of Las Cruces. And what it impacted us on Valley Drive is this was the proposed typical section on Valley Drive at that time. So you can see one of the pieces that we heard the most about was the frontage roads on each side. And so that was the last public meeting that we had. And then since then, we've done lots of property owner interviews. I think we've been to every business more than once. We've met with all of the property owners and business owners, and then we've gotten your feedback, and we really appreciate that. And a lot of the feedback, especially for the property owners that were within this Amador Proximo area, was negative. And so we expressed that to the city and the NMDOT, and so we kind of took a step back. And so if you guys remember, we were thinking that this project would probably almost be in construction right now, but because of that input and that feedback, we've taken a step back, and we wanted to make sure that we got this right. And so We went to the city council and we had a work session and a resolution in February, and the city council approved a phased approach to Amador Proximo. We didn't eliminate Amador Proximo at all, but they recognized the importance of the existing businesses along the corridor and maintaining access to those businesses. And so the city council approved continuing the continuous typical section G throughout the corridor. And so the same typical section I showed you earlier will be utilized throughout rather than have those frontage roads. And that is directly from you guys. So thank you for your input on that. A few other things that have come out of that. One of the most important things is the landscaping. If you guys can see on the placards against the wall, and then as you looked at the maps at the back, you could see little clusters of landscaping. And so with the trade-off of the Amador Proximo, we added landscaping to make up that cost savings. And I'm just going to quickly show you of some of that, what that might look like. Here's a section near Avenida de Macia. You can see we're just doing some really basic stuff, trying to dress up the corridor and make it look nice. Some trees, small trees, plantings. This thing doesn't know if it wants to work or not. And then as we proceed north, here's the section at Amador, close to Amador. You can see little pockets of landscaping. And then as we go further north, here's the fire station. And so that was one of the things that we wanted to make sure that you guys were aware of tonight as well. And then this is approaching the Picacho intersection here. One of the big things that I know always comes up when I talk about this project is how in the world is it going to get built? And so we've, in the plans, which are back here, we've broke it into 3 phases. The first phase that we show in the plans is from Picacho to Amador. And within that, the contractor is supposed to complete the entire street within that stretch. And then the second phase is from Amador to Avenida de Macia. And again, they're supposed to complete that entire stretch before they move on. And then the final phase is Avenida de Macia. We have the traffic control phased such that they will build half of the road at a time. And then we are going to leave 3 lanes open at all times. We're going to have a driving lane in each direction and then a middle turning lane. There may be a few times at an intersection, or if we're having to do something, that they may need to eliminate the middle turn lane, but not for any long duration. And then access to businesses, that's something that's not up here, but the contractor will be required to coordinate with all of you guys to provide you guys reasonable access during construction. You may have to kind of weave through some barrels or something, but there will be signs that say business access, or always a way for you guys to access your business during construction. And then finally, the schedule. That's something that we always wonder about. We are currently at 90% design. We have a PS&E, which is the 100% review meeting, in a couple of weeks. And then we will turn in our final plans at the end of June. And then we anticipate the project to bid in probably September or October, and then construction to begin in the late fall to early winter. Depending on the contractor, we may end up pushing that to the first of next year, but somewhere in that time frame is what we're expecting. And then with that, if you guys have any questions, any additional questions, I'd be glad to answer them. Yes, sir.
Will it be paved access to our business all the time, or can we expect dirt roads, gravel roads?
I would say that you probably at times would have a gravel or a base course road. Yes, sir.
In one of the original things, y'all were narrowing the street on Valley as it approached Amador. Now that you've done away with those frontage lanes, have you done away with narrowing that street down?
Yes, ma'am. The driving lanes throughout the entire project are 12 foot wide. In the Amador Proximo section, those narrowed to 11 feet. And then we continue to have the buffered bike lanes, so we have an additional 8 feet on the roadway where we didn't have before.
Okay. And so, but y'all didn't create that bottleneck like y'all had. As you exited the frontage road, y'all had created an extra bottleneck, so that's gone, right?
Yes, ma'am.
And then on Hadley, on the streets that are going east and westbound, is there going to be a turn signal? I know the light's existing, but are you putting a turn signal for east and westbound traffic?
So on Hadley, that is one of the streets that is getting reconfigured. Right now, Hadley has a shared through left turn lane in both directions. And we're actually changing that to be a dedicated left turn lane in both directions and a shared through right turn lane. So that'll be more standard to what you expect. So the signal cycle will have a green arrow.
It will have an arrow.
Yes, ma'am, for both directions. And then the through arrow will allow, or the through or the green ball will allow you to go straight through.
That's great. That's needed. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
You had mentioned bus stop. Will there be putting benches out there or any kind of shelters for the bus stop?
At this point, we are not putting any shelters. As part of the landscaping, we are putting some small little rock benches. They're really not meant to sit on. We are making the sidewalks wider in that area. I think they're 9 feet wide in those areas. And then the city, I believe, has a long-term plan. They've been putting in those bus shelters, those turquoise bus shelters here and there. And so that'll be something that can come in later. Yes, ma'am. It's going to depend on the contractor. For the whole job, we have estimated that it's going to take between, I think, 14 to 18 months. So if you look at 6 months per phase, some of them may go faster than others, but roughly 6 months per phase. Yes, sir.
Is there any control as far as the contractor is concerned? I mean, we have a real problem on Main Street, and I think it was absolutely ridiculous. How are we going to control this not happening on Valley Drive? Because you're going to kill a lot of businesses if it's not controlled.
So I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, Aaron and AJ, that the NMDOT has implemented what they call they have a scoring system for contractors, in which it's not just low bid. In the past, it's always been the low bid contractor gets the work in New Mexico for state projects. However, now they've implemented a point system where contractors are pre-qualified and they're scored based off of their past performance. And so I know that there's been a few projects around the state that the low bid actually hasn't been awarded the contract because of those pre-qualifications.
What is there going to be a time limit set within the contract also? Or has he got forever to complete the contract?
There is a time limit, and they will be assessed liquidated damages if they go over that time limit. I'm not sure what that dollar value will be at this point. I'm not sure who determines that.
$1,000 per lane mile per day.
Is that time limit 14 months, or is that time limit 5 years, or what is the time limit? You said the project is between 14 months and 18 months, I believe.
Right, and
What is the contract going to be? Do they say you're going to get it done in 14 months, or aren't you got penalty, or?
We'll have to work on that exact time frame. We don't do that at Molson, but the DOT will establish a time limit and it's going to be about 18 months. And then if they pass that 18 months by one day, they will begin find those liquidated damages for every day beyond that time.
If we have a problem, I don't want to get caught in the environmentalist design that you had up there earlier as one of the endangered species.
That's a good point.
If we have a problem during construction, this is still under the control of the State Highway Department, is that correct?
Yes, sir. And then
So we have a contact person and a number in the State Highway Department that we can call if we have issues with the contractor.
yes, sir.
That someone that can take action and will act on it.
Yes, sir. And then these.
So during construction, I'm Eric, I'm a guy with the DOT. During construction, once construction starts, we typically have monthly public meetings where the contractor comes in and shows you their schedule, what they're going to be doing for the next month.
That's nice, but I'm also talking about you can't get into the spot one morning because they left the tractor or something. Or I have the same problem.
So
Who do we call to try to get that resolved?
much better. And you'll have it. You'll get it. Yes.
You also need to go to those are handy, but I'm just talking about the kinds of things that
Yeah, everyday stuff.
that happen on a daily basis that we have to.
Project, yeah.
Yes, sir.
Is there a website that shows the current design, like you have in the back, and then you're showing them changes to that design?
Yes, sir. It's valleydrive.net, and you can go to that website. It was just updated today, actually. And then if you go to the bottom of the page, there's a link down there. I think it says proposed typical sections, and then it'll direct you to another page where you can look at this map that's on the wall. Yes, ma'am.
I may have heard you wrong, but did you say that there will be benches that people are really not supposed to sit on?
They're landscaped features. So we're putting in little rock walls is what we're proposing to put in. They're about 18 inches high and I think 7 or 8 feet long. They're more decoration to add to the landscaping so that when...
Are they in the view?
No, ma'am. They would be behind the sidewalk or beside the sidewalk so that if you were at the bus stop, you could set your bag down or something if you had it. And then at some point, the city may come in and put the bus shelters at all of those locations.
Will each phase be bid out, or is it going to be one contractor for all of the phases?
It'll be one contractor for the entire project.
And the phases will be spelled out in the contract, because the last time you said it would be up to the contract to decide whether it's one phase or not. So is this going to be a requirement at this point? Mandatory?
It is a requirement within the plans at this point. If the contractor comes with a proposal of saying, I can save you 8 months if we do it this way, the DOT will always entertain those ideas. But if there is a change made to the plans as they're presented, that'll be the contractor's responsibility to do all the traffic control associated with that. Yes, ma'am.
We're kind of late into this, so I don't know if this is a question that's already been discussed, but are there any pedestrian crossings anywhere other than that light?
No, ma'am. There's at every signalized intersection, there's pedestrian crossings, but there's no mid-block crossings, if you will, like they have one at University or close to the City Hall. We don't have any of those. And a lot of that is due to the speed. The speed on Valley Drive is 45 miles an hour, and so it's kind of creates a conflict if you try to cross the street. I mean, we know that people are probably gonna cross the street where they're not supposed to, but they're not supposed to. Any additional questions? Yes, sir. Mm-hmm. Correct. So your concern is impeding the flow to EBID during construction, correct? We are not actually doing any work to that EBID structure whatsoever. Correct. It does run right under Valley Drive. It's pretty deep at that location, and so we don't have any pipes coming in or out of it. We don't have a sewer line that goes across it. Only thing we would have is a water line that would go across it. We can look into that and get back to you if you would leave me your contact information, but we can make some sort of stipulation where they can't disturb that flow. Any additional questions or comments?
Take a form or take a comment form and feel free to send us in your comments.
Well, again, I just want to thank you guys for taking the time out of your evening. I know May's a busy month, and you guys have been here through it all, and so we really appreciate your input. And we'll keep you posted on any changes, and then look forward to a successful project. So thank you.